Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to talk to you about the benefits of dynamic stretching. Now, dynamic stretching, kind of in the world of stretching, dynamic stretching is opposed to static stretching. Static stretching simply means I move the limb into a position, hold it, and I'm lengthening and trying to stretch the particular muscle. So static stretching versus dynamic stretching. Dynamic stretching, by definition, simply means that you are moving a limb to elongate a muscle in a controlled fashion. Just real quick. Dynamic stretching can sometimes be confused with what is known as ballistic stretching. I just want to get that out of the way. We're not talking about ballistic stretching. Ballistic stretching, you've seen this, right? You've seen swimmers, right? And they do this and they throw their arms back and they're stretching their pecs. Nothing wrong with that type of stretching, by the way. Context. Context. I do it with athletes, okay? So individuals that, for the most part, can withstand those forces on the muscles and the joints. Ballistic stretching works really well in some cases. Not for the average client. Very seldom would I do it. It'd have to be a really, really fit individual. So don't confuse what I'm talking about here with what we call ballistic stretching. Dynamic stretching is a controlled movement pattern where a limb is taken to its range of motion, generally its full range of motion, allowing for this lengthening, normal physiological length, lengthening of a particular muscle. Whatever muscle it is, you are trying to stretch. If you do it dynamically, you're simply moving the limb through its range of motion that it can move through without you ballistically throwing your arms back or throwing your legs up. And you've seen many of these different type of movements. And dynamic stretching is a very safe way to stretch. And we normally will do, and it's one of the benefits of dynamic type stretching, is that you can do, anybody can do it, even people that are detrained, that aren't very fit. Absolutely nothing wrong with dynamic type of stretch. In fact, it's a of benefit for individuals after they've warmed up. Remember, got to warm up to do some range of motion dynamic stretching. Now, please don't confuse dynamic stretching with just basic warm-ups. I've seen this over the years. I've had students tell me, "Well, isn't arm circles dynamic stretching?" And the answer is no, not that I know of, because you're not stretching anything. By the way, is arm circles a good warm up for your shoulders and your deltoids and right? Absolutely. That's not dynamic stretching. Dynamic stretching for your shoulders, I'll just give you an example. Dynamic stretching, again, because dynamic stretching is movement, controlled movements using muscular contractions, muscular activity to lengthen another muscle. Okay, so if I wanted to stretch my deltoids, I can do it behind my back, for instance, or in front. I can move my arm forward this way and back. All I'm doing is I'm taking a joint, a limb, for instance, my arm and the joint, my shoulder joint, and I'm moving it through its range of motion in a controlled manner so that I can stretch a particular muscle, the muscle in question. So this brings into focus two terms, agonist and antagonist. Now, generally, we use those terms when we're talking about strengthening or training a particular muscle, but we can use the same terminology when we're talking about dynamic stretching. So the agonist is the muscle that you are trying to stretch. So I come into the gym and I'm training my chest, my pecs, my shoulders, and my triceps, right? It's a pushing day for me. And I've done active stretching and passive, whatever. Now I want to try some dynamic stretching and I want to give that a shot and see how that works. Well, in order to dynamically stretch my pecs, I'm going to have to elongate my pecs, right? So my pecs then become the agonist. Well, in order to lengthen my pecs, I've got to do what at the shoulder? Well, if the pecs are going to flex, adduct the shoulder, I've got to do the opposite movements. Well, what muscles are going to provide the force to provide that movement pattern? That's going to be the antagonistic muscles to the pectoralis major. Generally, it's like the trapezius, the real deltoid. I guess you could say the lats if you wanted to, rhomboids. Those are the muscles that when I contract them, I can control this movement, right, that's going to now lengthen my pectoralis. Maybe an easier way to understand it is to use the biceps and the triceps. If I want to lengthen my tricep, right? I want to dynamically stretch my tricep to lengthen the tricep. Now I'm saying I want to stretch this guy here. That's the agonist. Well, what is the muscle that works in opposition to the tricep? Come on. It's the bicep, right? The triceps extend the elbow, the biceps flex the elbow. So if I want to stretch my tricep dynamically, I'm going to do controlled movements that allow me to move my elbow through its range of motion, normal range of motion, right? Without ballistically throwing my fist into my chest, for instance. So it's a controlled movement to stretch my tricep. I am generally, if I'm not using gravity or my hand, for instance, I can use my bicep, right, to contract and flex and contract my bicep to lengthen my tricep. Tricep is the agonist, bicep is the antagonist. I'm using the muscular force, so to speak, of my bicep to lengthen my tricep. I can reverse that if I'm trying to stretch my bicep dynamically. I'm not saying you're going to do that, but if you were going to do it, if I'm going to lengthen my bicep, I could use my tricep. Now, this is the agonist. I'm lengthening it. I'm trying to stretch it dynamically, right? And I can move it through its range of motion this way, right? It's not that big of a deal with your bicep, but I could use my tricep to contract my tricep to lengthen the bicep. You can do the same thing with your hamstrings and your quads or your glutes. Think about when you're doing dynamic stretching, you got to remember the muscle you're stretching and its antagonist, because it's generally going to be the antagonist that you're using muscular force wise. It's not much, obviously. Again, if you can use gravity to do it, then that's fine as well. But if you're going to use the muscles to move you through a range of motion, you got to remember the muscle that you are stretching, dynamically stretching, you need to know its antagonist, right? The muscles that work in opposition to it. Once you know that, those are generally the guys that you're going to use to, and again, I keep showing you I'm stretching my pecs. I've got to use the opposing muscles to contract and move my shoulder joint to lengthen my pecs. So the benefit of dynamic, one of the benefits of dynamic stretching is that it generally allows for an increase in the warm up component at the particular joint that you'll be working out, right? If I'm going to be doing bench presses, got to warm my shoulder up. Well, one of the ways I can do that is get a general warm up. And even before I start doing particular warm ups with resistance, I can do dynamic stretching. I can do controlled movements to lengthen and increase the range of motion, generally increase the range of motion of the joint I'm going to be working when I do my bench press. So I would do dynamic stretching to start moving my shoulder joint through the range of motion. But you see how it's controlled and it's not ballistic. It's controlled. So there's little to no risk of injury on the joint, which once again, it's a great type of stretching to use for the average client. Get them moving their limbs through their range of motion to increase and enhance the warm up. It doesn't mean that we're not going to do active or different types of static type of stretching. It's just that the benefit of dynamic stretching is such that I can actually sort of increase even just sort of the neurological component of the training that I'm going to be doing. I can start getting my brain sort of focused on the joint by moving the joint through this stretching pattern. So that's a great part of the dynamic stretching. The other thing, of course, is that dynamic stretching, I guess similar to some of the other types of stretching, is that it does a really good job of increasing blood flow to the joint and to the muscles that you're going to be training. Now, again, remember, unlike static stretching, dynamic stretching does not involve lengthening the muscle and holding it there. Okay. One of the benefits of dynamic stretching is that I don't have to hold my muscle in this position. I don't have to spend 20 seconds, 30 seconds, or even longer to get the Golgi tendon organs to kind of kick in shut down muscle spindle fiber activation and relax the muscle. You see some of the benefits, right, are that you don't have to spend a whole lot of time doing that to get the muscle lengthened and increase overall sort of blood flow to that area. Doesn't mean that the other types of stretching are not good. They just have a different benefits, and we can use them at different times during your training session. So the overall benefit of dynamic stretching, as long as you're not confusing it with ballistic type of stretching, is this increased blood flow to the joints that you're working over, and the excuse me, and the ability to get those limbs moving, particularly in the movement pattern that you're going to be using in the actual event that you're going to be doing, or the type of exercise that you're going to be using. It increases overall neuromuscular control as well. So that's a benefit of dynamic stretching. And again, it's helpful for the sort of the average detrained client to start getting into this movement pattern that will lengthen and increase total range of motion for the particular joints that you're going to be working over. I hope that this video was of benefit to you. Let us know if you want me to talk more about or do another video on other specific types of stretching. Just let us know by writing that in the comment section below. If it made sense, write the word understand in there as well. And just let us know how we can be of assistance. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up. Take care. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye.